Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes.
Okay, great. I just got one of these mics, so I wanted to test it.
Okay. As usual, it's a lovely background you have there, Vanina.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Hi. Pass it. I can't see the CIR logo on the top. Hello?
Everybody can hear this, including attendees.
เริ่มได้ค่ะ
Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the ICCA, my name is Percy Aswapon as a managing director of the ICCA. I would like to warmly welcome you all to the Arbitral Women and the ICCA joint seminar as a part of the ICCA International Webinar Series in the topic of the power of party. The power of parity, opportunities and challenges. I would like to wish you and your families all the best for your health and safety in these difficult times. First of all, I would like to thank Arbitral Women for cooperating with the Thailand Arbitration Center or the HAC to this webinar. Arbitral Women is an international non-governmental organization with the primary objective of advancing the interests of women and promoting female practitioners and diversity in international dispute resolution. The HAC is a center providing a full range of alternative dispute resolution services located in the heart of Bangkok. The Thailand Arbitration Center, or the HAC, supports and promotes arbitration and ADR in Thailand, aiming to become a leading arbitration center in the Asia Pacific region. For Thailand, Thailand has no barriers regarding gender. However, there is still a little presence of women involving in arbitration in our country. Arbitral Women and the Thailand Arbitration Center are joining forces for the first time to address the crucial issue of gender diversity in international arbitration in Thailand. We are pleased to support Arbitral Women, and we think that this cooperation is the perfect first step to promote female practitioners and diversities in arbitration in Thailand. The panel, composed by prominent female arbitration experts, will discuss challenges and perspectives on gender diversity. In a time of unprecedented travel restrictions and trying to face challenges created by the COVID-19 pandemic, I believe it is more important than ever to keep developing the arbitration community and share our experiences through all the available channels such as this webinar. Once again, I would like to thank you, Arbitral Women, for being co-organizer of this webinar and director of Arbitral Women, Kun Vanina Sucharit Kun, for supporting and tireless work in pushing to this webinar. Last but not least, I would like to thank all speakers and participants who are joining the webinar. I hope this webinar will be very productive for all the participants. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Good afternoon, everyone. I do have some slides that I would like to share. If the host could just enable the share screen function, that would be really helpful. Thank you. If that's not going to work, then perhaps I can circulate the slides afterwards, if you just let me know. Okay, it seems that technology is going to let us down at the first hurdle. I hope it's not at my end. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm just going to ask my panelists to indicate whether they can hear me loud and clear. Great, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this inaugural Arbitral Women and Thailand Arbitration Centre event. I'm Louise Woods, Vice President of Arbitral Women, a proud supporter of today's all-female panel discussion, which sees arbitral women in the Thailand arbitration joining for the first time to discuss gender equality, or should that be inequality, in international arbitration. As many of you know, Arbitral Women is an international non-governmental organization dedicated to promoting women and diversity in international dispute resolution. Founded in Paris in 1993, today our 1,000 strong membership spans the globe from at least 40 countries. Our board of directors, which includes one of today's panelists, Vanina Sukaritko, hail from 13 cities and volunteer their time to support the organization's activities in furtherance of Arbitral Women's purpose to promote and unite women in international dispute resolution. Arbitral Women is a proud supporter, promoter, and signatory of the Equal Representation in Arbitration Pledge. Our activities include publishing content that features leading women in dispute resolution on our website and in our newsletters, hosting and supporting events that reflect our mission to promote women and diversity, such as today's panel discussion, and major arbitration events around the globe, such as IBA Arbitration Day, Australia Arbitration Week, New York Arbitration Week, Peruvian Arbitration Day, London International Disputes Week, and Dubai Arbitration Week, to name but a few. Promoting our members' professional achievements on our website, in our news alerts, and on social media via Twitter and LinkedIn. Maintaining a public, searchable directory of our members on our website to assist parties, counsel, and institutions in identifying female arbitrators, counsel, and experts. Offering a professional mentorship scheme, pairing mentees with more senior dispute resolution practitioners to offer support, advice, guidance, and the benefit of their experience. Reporting on diversity initiatives in the workplace and beyond, and educating the international community about unconscious bias and ways to overcome it through our bespoke training program, the Arbitral Women Diversity Toolkit. There is too much to cover in the space of a few short minutes, and I encourage you to visit our website, arbitralwomen.org, to learn more about Arbitral Women's many programs and activities and individual and corporate membership options. I am very much looking forward to hearing from today's accomplished panelists. As I'm sure many of you know, empirical studies have consistently shown that diverse groups produce better results. So it's in all our interests and those of our clients to ensure international dispute resolution becomes a more diverse and inclusive space. That's not to say that male practitioners are not welcome, far from it. We at Arbitral Women recognize the need to engage men in discussions around gender equality and to recognize those who champion change. For this reason, almost all of our events are open to both men and women to attend. On behalf of Arbitral Women, I thank you for attending today's exciting event, and we hope to see you at another virtual Arbitral Women event soon. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Louise, for that. And thank you, Khun Pasit, for a wonderful introduction. We'll get right to the panel now. I'm Manani, I'm the moderator for today's session. I must begin by congratulating THAC and Arbitral Women for handpicking such a uniquely comprehensive panel for the discussion today. It is unique because it is united and diverse. United by its experience of international arbitration in Asia, from Thailand to Malaysia, China, Hong Kong, India, Singapore, which makes today's discussion doubly relevant. It is not only about gender diversity in international arbitration, it is also about Asia's experience of the issue. And at the same time, this panel is diverse in the different profiles and the different journeys of the panelists as arbitrators, counsel, institutional representatives who would have started their careers in different countries at different points of time. A look at this panel and one could not be faulted for presuming that women have done incredibly well in arbitration in Asia, covered all of the bases. But unfortunately, the statistics and stories of personal accounts paint a different picture. We're here to explore that picture today, to evaluate how far we've come and how much further we have to go. No picture of gender diversity is complete without a reference to the contribution of the Equal Representation in Arbitration Pledge, which was drawn up in 2015 and has ever since garnered over 4,000 signatures of institutions and individuals alike. The pledge commits signatories who may be counsel, arbitrators, in-house counsel, institutions, anybody who is active in the practice of international arbitration really, to improve the profile and representation of women in arbitration. It aims to increase the appointment of women arbitrators on an equal opportunity basis and make them more visible, more integrated in the arbitration world. The pledge has given voice to an issue which has long been discussed in different quarters of the arbitration community. And it is not surprising, therefore, that it has received such overwhelming support. It has made the discussion around gender diversity much more open, more transparent, and pushed members of the arbitration community to take a stand, to actively pursue more appointments of female arbitrators, amongst other things. The statistics tell us that between 2015 and 2019, the proportion of female appointments has almost doubled and now stands at 21%, which is a huge improvement. Institutions have, of course, been at the forefront of this change, with nearly a third of institutional appointments in 2019 being women. And they're supported in their efforts by the many organizations and collectives that have championed the cause of gender diversity in arbitration wholeheartedly, including Arbitral Women and the CIR. There's evidently room for improvement, however. We're far from an equitable scenario. In some jurisdictions, which I hope we will discuss today, the appointment of women arbitrators remains abysmally low, much below the 21% mark, a problem which can only be overcome by a coordinated effort from all quarters, including you, the listeners, and me. The first step is certainly for more and more people to sign the pledge. So please do go online, arbitrationpledge.com, and contribute to the resolve of the arbitration community to deal with this very important issue. Simply click a button and take the pledge. And to personify what can be done by women of merit and perseverance, we have, of course, Serena Williams, who keeps setting new records, as she recently did in the US Open. And we have women like the 5 panelists in the arbitration community that we have today. So let's get into it. Let's talk about their experiences, their perception of the arbitration world, and where they see issues of gender diversity, what their stand is on it. Before we get into it, just a couple of housekeeping issues. Anybody who wants to ask questions, there is a little box at the bottom of your screen, which is a Q&A box. Do click on that, and we'll try and take your questions as they come in and as they fit in. The panelists may choose to answer some directly, or I will put them to the panel at the right time during the course of the discussion. And a request to the panelists as well, as I'm sure they know, do keep your mics muted when somebody is speaking so that there's no disturbance. Right, so my first question is really to all the panelists, and it draws out of my personal experience. I remember when I was in law school, I felt like I could do anything and be anyone. You know, there was this whole hope and anticipation about joining the legal profession, and doing great things. And of course, I was supported in that perception by friends and family. I have now been in the profession for 10 years, and over these 10 years, at almost all junctures, I have realized that the people around me didn't think that I was capable of the things that I thought I was capable of. This panel is a good mix of people who would have joined the profession at different points of time, as I said earlier. And in a sense, we could create a timeline understanding of how gender bias has evolved over the years. So we'd love to hear about your personal experiences of gender bias in the profession, and particularly at which point did you feel it most acutely? As someone looking for a job, as a junior associate, as a counsel, or as an arbitrator? I'd be happy for anyone to start. Camilla, would you like to take a stab at it?
Thank you very much, Manini. And it's very great to be here, and welcome to all the individuals who joined us today. I would say mine came quite early on in my career, because I suppose I've been hardened to it. And although I may have come across it later in my career, I've learned to shake it off a little bit better. So I would say that maybe it comes from male peers and male competitors. That's probably where I've seen sometimes, and sometimes it's been more senior people to me, maybe who've seen me as a threat, who've tried to sort of tell me that I wasn't good enough, or mark up a piece of work that probably didn't need to be marked up, but putting their stamp on something rather than just letting me have my own stamp. So later, as my career has progressed, I think I still come across people like that, but I'm better able to rise above it and to yeah, as I say, move along or answer them back.
That's interesting. It's like an instinct for survival, isn't it? You just,
yeah, maybe. I wasn't going to let them hold my career down.
Yeah, yes, I understand that completely. Vanina, would you like to come in?
Yes, sure. Thank you, Manini, and thank you again to the THAC. This is the first gender diversity panel in Thailand. So I'm very grateful that we're finally bringing this dialogue forward, and that I hope that this is just the beginning of many more to come. I went to law school in the United States, where 50% were law students, and I was raised by my Thai grandfather, who is a lawyer and who was an exit arbitrator, and who was my great inspiration and idol, who also told me I could be anything. And when I started as a first-year associate in the law school in America, we were 50% women. So it never occurred to me that there was a problem or there was an issue of women in the profession. Until in the beginning, we had a talk by the female lead litigator, and she told me of her experience, that she felt like she didn't belong and that she felt like an imposter. And one day people were going to find out that she didn't belong there. And I didn't understand what she meant at all. And later on in the career, I learned that there was such a thing as called the Imposter Syndrome. Now, it took me a long time to understand this, because as I progressed in my career, the first-year associates that started it with me started to disappear. And this is what is known as the pipeline leak, that they started to leave the profession. They started going in-house or altogether leaving the law, which left, as I went more senior in my career, I started to wonder, where did all the women go? And I've noticed throughout my career certain unwitting bias. For example, when I became the youngest and one of the only female court members to ICC, we would have a committee member of 3 court members, and I was sitting in the court member seat. And the vice president chairing the panel would say, we can't start the session yet. We don't have the third court member. And I would have to raise my hand and say, I'm right here. And it wasn't uncommon to always be asked, are you the secretary? Or in an arbitration hearing, the arbitrator would say to me, oh, it must be hard for you to find a boyfriend because men don't like smart women. And these kinds of comments would never be said to a woman. Or a partner would say to me, I don't understand why you got into this profession because you're just going to get pregnant. And at some point, leave the profession. These kinds of comments that started to happen are called unconscious bias, would occur again. Or I would be told not to sit in front of a client or not to say a word to the client because I'm a woman. And it is these kinds of experiences that I started noticing more and more in here. And they might not be outright discrimination, but there would be discouragement to start to wear you down. So these are some of the examples, and they were across the board because I worked in Hong Kong, in Thailand, in France, and also in the United States. And these are some examples of personal stories.
Thank you, Vanina, for that. I think in your summary, I've heard so many of the issues that are so important to the panel today. You've spoken about unconscious bias and about the pipeline leak, and of course the internalization of that bias. We're going to deal with all of that in detail. I'd like to rope in May and Suyin at this point to give their opinions, and then maybe we'd also go on to Nopumat. May?
Thanks, Manini. Whilst I agree with everything that's been said before me, of course I do. I do feel that, from my perspective, I always like to think the best of people, and oftentimes these things happen at a subconscious or unconscious level, and it's totally unintentional. And oftentimes it's better for you and for the individual and for the cause, not necessarily to make light of things, but rather just to believe in the best of everyone. So when I was a junior associate in one of my first hearings, which was also an ICCIT hearing, I was the associate on the case and supporting the partner who was doing the advocacy. And at the end of a 1-week trial, the opposing counsel, who was an elderly Indonesian lawyer, came to us and shook our hands and said to the partner, "You have an amazing secretary. You must teach me how to make my secretary as good as yours," referring to me. And of course, you can only laugh because the man just clearly hasn't been in enough international arbitration hearings to know that that was not what I did. But what I think would have been great in that instance is that he will go back to his firm, he will talk to his wife, he will talk to his daughter and say, look what opportunities are available for female lawyers, in other countries. They can go to ICCIT arbitrations and do substantive jobs and not just be the secretary. And in that same hearing, this was about 20 years ago, the chair in the tribunal said to the partner at the end, when we were doing all the handshaking business, he said, "Oh, I've been in another hearing with May before some time ago, and she did a piece of advocacy at that hearing, and she was really great. You should really think about giving her and your juniors other opportunities going forward." And that was fantastic for me that he said that to the partner that I was working for at the time. And it really helped with my credibility. And whilst there are things that push us back, I guess, inadvertently by the speaker, there's similarly so many things that can be done to promote us and push us forwards by men and women alike. And I just wanted to also pick up on one point that Vanina made. Vanina, the same thing happened to Simon Chapman a while back when he was on a panel and he had showed up for the hearing for the first time. And, they'd obviously talked to each other a lot on the phone, but the co-arbitrator, who is a very senior gentleman, clearly didn't look what he looked like. And so when he showed up at the hearing room, the other co-op just kept saying, no, I think we need to wait until Simon Chapman shows up before we can start. And, you know, it could have been a coincidence, but clearly it was a reflection, and he didn't expect this young man sitting in front of him to be Simon, because, you know, he was so impressive and had done so much in his career already by reputation. So I guess my point is that it does happen to men as well, what happens to us, and we mustn't automatically, you know, assume that we're kind of the victim in the relationship and the one being looked down on, etc. Sometimes it's just, you know, a coincidence, a misunderstanding.
That's a nice and optimistic way to start the panel. There are an equal number of incidents on both sides, which is always nice. I think that will really take the discussion forward. Swiyim and Nopramat, if you could also come in, we'd love to hear from you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you very much, THAC and Arbitral Women and CIARB and everybody who's part of this whole movement. You know, I'm probably a little bit older than most of you, and when I came on the scene in the late 80s, like Manini, I thought that I graduated, I've been called to the bar, I was the master of the universe. I had no idea what was out there waiting for me. I had no idea that there were things that I was not supposed to be doing quite yet. And so I just went about it. And I agree with me, at the end of the day, just go at it. And of course, yes, I did, after about 10 years, suddenly realized that the things that were normal was actually gender bias. I didn't realize it at that time, but until at one stage, it suddenly hit me and went, oh, wow, this is actually gender bias. And what really hit me actually was a time when I was acting as lead counsel for an arbitration. And the arbitrator was a really lovely chap, slightly older. But I guess because he was slightly older, it was normal for him to have that gender bias just ingrained in him. And I have to say, there were times when I would finish the day's hearing and I would leave and go home in absolute tears, just frustrated that I wasn't heard. And that's really when I started finding out about gender bias. Subsequently, and years later, when I started to take on appointments as arbitrator, again, I would find that a lot of the males, even though they were younger or less experienced, would be appointed over somebody like myself. I still remember somebody saying to me, oh, well, Sui, we're not going to appoint you because you're still in practice. And there's obviously going to be conflicts. And we're like, hang on a moment. Everybody else who's been appointed is still in practice. So how come there's no conflict there? Is it because as a female that I'm not able to deal with conflict and males can compartmentalize more? I don't know. But all I can say is that things have changed a lot in the last few years, not least by events such as this, not least because of CIARB and all the other arbitral institutions that are making a difference. But I wholly agree with May that we shouldn't be feeling it too much. Sometimes being too aware of this possibility of bias, be it gender or anything for that matter, or any other sort of bias for that matter, sometimes it can become a weight that's hanging around our neck. So think back of my first 10 years when I didn't actually realize there was anything such as a bias, and I just went out there and did my stuff without knowing what it's all about. And you know what? It was pretty fun. So just get out there and do it.
Thank you for that, Swiyam. I remember exploring this also as an option, you know, sometimes just thinking about the world as a perfect place and is sort of ignoring in my mind the things that I thought were not right. And you're right, sometimes it just helps you, you know, imagine a perfect world and then somehow manifest it as well. I've seen that happen. So I agree with you on that. Thank you for that. Nopramat, could we have your word on it?
Yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you for everyone. And actually, I like to share my experience as the local litigator because most of my work actually litigation of, even though I also handle some of the international arbitration, but as the litigation lawyer, I like to share you that I feel like the gender bias is in my early year of the experience is not a big issue because I think that okay, I can do everything that equal to the man counterpart. But you know, but I also have a very good opposing male lawyers and that working very well together. But only some cases that I explain that they intend to attack us as the female litigator. I have one case in Thai court, and in that case is like it starts from the civil case, civil action, and then it spread to like almost 5 criminal cases, and then I represent in all the cases. But I asked my client, the Taiwanese client, why you engage our firm. He said that his previous female lawyers withdraw from the case. I asked what's the reason, and he told me that the opposing lawyer sue her, sue her for the false testimony. That is very common tactic in Thai court, you know. And that female lawyer feel that, oh, this is not good because she want to take a judge exam and she don't want to have the criminal record. So then she have to withdraw from the case. And then the case come back to me. Yes, female lawyer again. And this time I object everything that he filed in the court. What happened? One day in the court, he came to me, walked directly to me, and he threatened me that if you not stop objecting me, I will hit you. That is very surprise to me. But in my experience, I think that he intend to use that threat. But because I'm female lawyer, but if I'm male lawyer, he will not do something like that. But I told him that, okay, don't bully me because I will report you to the judge and I will report the judge directly. So that is my experience for handling the case with it's actually, I think it's a rare case that happened, but in Thai culture, when we say that if you want to be the lawyer, it's the dangerous job, especially you female, right? So that is something that we have to bear in mind. But I said that, oh, I'm not afraid. Send me the criminal case, no worry, I can handle it. And another thing that I think that I met a lot of clients, international clients, but usually I feel that they not choose, they not engage you because you female or male. However, it's only some few cases that client request that I need the male lawyer to handle the case because they're more aggressive, more assertive, and more efficient, blah, blah, blah. So, but I always reply to them that, let's try me. And then I can prove to you that we can be also more aggressive in our practice and more efficient as well. So that I like to share my experience. Okay, thank you.
Thanks for that, Nopramat. I'd like to hold you in the conversation a little longer. It really takes me to my next question, which was about ground level perspectives in different jurisdictions. And my understanding, at least on the basis of what I've read, seems to indicate that actually the Thai community and the legal community is more balanced in terms of gender than the Thai arbitration community. So Thailand has the distinction of now having a woman president of the Supreme Court, and also an excellent ratio of female and male judges, which is 1:5. It's not a parity ratio, but it is something to speak of. And then we have on the arbitration side, only 1 in every 14 partners as female partners in the dispute resolution practices. So my sense was that it might be easier to be a counsel on the litigation side, and that there is some inhibition in sort of translating that equality in a sense to the arbitration side. Would you agree? Do you think it's a difficult transition to the world of international arbitration, or do you think that there are challenges on both sides? And what do you have to say about that? Vanina, if you could also come in after Nopramad, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, I think to have the career in the arbitration for Thai litigator or the Thai law graduates is something I think it's difficult to understand the arbitration role, you know. Let's say in my year, like in the year 2000, when I started working with the law firm, so it's something that when I check all the partners of the law firm in the international law firm, I couldn't find the female partner in the dispute resolution in the year 2000. And that is something I think how we transform our litigation lawyers to be the arbitration lawyer, because usually the people who practice in the arbitration, they either come from the litigation or from the academic, right? So, but yes, Thailand for the other career, other profession, I can say that we quite equal, because there are so many Thai female that sit on the very high ranking in the government or in the other reputable companies in Thailand. But for legal profession, I think yes, we also equal, but not in the dispute resolution, especially in terms of the international practice. Yes, we have like 50% of female law students in the law school, but where they gone? I can say that where they gone, it's better for them to choose the bar exam, to take the bar exam, pass the judge exam, and become the judge at the 25-year-old, right? That's easier and shorter. But if they want to be the arbitrator, that's very difficult. How can they be promoted as the partner in the law firm? Difficult. I think that difficult. Even though right now in my law firm, I think especially my law firm, we promote the equality of the gender, because we have like almost 50-50 dispute resolution, male and female. But the other law firm that I ever worked before, I think that less than 20% of the female associates in the dispute resolution department. That's why it's difficult when the women become the arbitrators. That I think that is the issue. Yeah, and another cause that to be the litigation lawyer, female take longer training, because the supervisor, male supervisor, they're not allow you or allow you to go to the court with the females, right? Sometimes they uncomfortable. If I'm the male lawyer and I have to accompany my junior female associate, and like 2 or 3 female associates, they maybe feel uncomfortable. Maybe they're not biased, but they feel uncomfortable. So that would be the issue. That but from my experience, I have very good supporters and good mentor to support me. They let me go to the court the first day that I'm working with the firm. But for the other female lawyers, sometimes they have to take like 2 or 3 years. But the male associate, they take like 1 week. You go every week. You go to with the senior lawyers. Then they have more experience. That is my point that I like to share. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Nopramat. Actually, even in India, my experience of the Indian bar has been very similar. I mean, I don't really think that, I don't know how uncomfortable women are in terms of going with their seniors, but certainly I have seen that younger members, male members of the bar, make appearances in court at a much earlier age than women. You know, somehow they just seem to have the confidence to be able to confront or take on a bench, which female really take time to develop. So that's interesting. And you've also referred to the pipeline leak problem, which Vanina referred to earlier. So maybe we can take that question directly after Vanina's views on the Thai arbitration community. Vanina?
Yes, well, before this panel, I was gathering some data on the law students right now, and one of the most prestigious law school has 3,200 female law students and about 1,800 male law students. So right now, females outnumber males about 60%. But when looking at major Thai and international firms, the number of partners is about 1/3. And when it comes to dispute resolution, the female dispute resolution partners is about 1 out of 14. And from my experience, I've never come across a female opposing counsel or even a junior opposing counsel in an arbitration in Thailand. And I've never seen a female arbitrator. And looking at even institutional appointments, just the data from one institution out of 48 cases, now not even knowing how many, if it's the 3-member tribunal or a sole arbitrator, there's only been 2 female appointments. So the idea of female arbitrators, I think, is still very novel in Thailand, and the same persons are generally picked over and over again. And part of it is a unique nature of arbitration, that it's party appointed. So as one practitioner has said, diversity is the last thing on people's minds. But I mean, I personally had a unique experience because I was in an international firm, and when working with a foreign partner, the only person who can do the advocacy in Thailand has to be a Thai national. Foreigners are not allowed to speak in a hearing in Thailand. So I was fortunate to do the advocacy for an entire case as a 4th-year associate. And so I had that unique experience being multinational. But unfortunately, I think that, like Kun Nopramat said, it's much more difficult as a junior Thai lawyer. And also, the culture is that culturally, Thais are a little bit more shy. So they would not just kind of go up to the partner and say, I want to be put on this case. I want to be the one to go around, and putting their hand forward and saying that I want to go and do the advocacy. And this would be seen as aggressive in the culture. And so you kind of step back, and it's just part of the culture not to do self-promotion or not to put yourself out there. So there's the cultural factor as well.
Okay, yes, I sense that there are lots of dimensions to this cultural issue, particularly in several Asian jurisdictions. Swayam, if we could have your input on how things are in the Malaysian bar as compared to the Malaysian arbitration fraternity. And also if you could throw some light on this issue of the pipeline leak, which both Vanina and Nopramat have referred to. Why do you think women sort of, diversify and don't stick to the challenges of law firm life. They, of course, do interesting things even outside, whether it's, raising a family or getting into academics or research. But it's not, they shy or dodge the challenge of, sticking it out to the partnership. So if we could have your perspective on both these issues.
Sure. Let me start off with what the situation is in Malaysia. And like most jurisdictions, the female students and associates outnumber the males. And this is true when you go and attend a call to the bar, you find that of the 10, 20 people that have been called, invariably, at least half, if not more, are female. But like like everybody else's experience, you find that these females tend to, after let's say 5 to 5 years, tend to drop out of the scene and they tend to do other things. Why is that? I think that there are many reasons for that. And one of them, of course, is the fact that, again, I mean, all this is nothing new. It's been said before. Firstly, they're not as aggressively promoting themselves. That's not something that is natural to them. And I think that in some cases, because of that, they just don't like the politics of firms. Just having to play the politics in order to be able to get ahead, whereas males seem to find it perhaps a little bit more easy. Now, that's a very general statement, and that's not fair to a lot of women, I think. But I think that is one of the issues. But I also think that as time has passed by, the whole scene with women is actually changed rapidly. Now, Malaysia is still very much an Asian type of society and culture where it's very patriarchal. Having said that, however, I mean, the state of Kelantan in the northeast of Peninsular Malaysia is matriarchal. Malaysia has got a chief justice who's female, a president of a court of appeal who's female. These are the two most senior judges in the land. We have the federal court, which is our apex court. 8 out of 14 are women. These are all fabulous statistics. Our previous, we've had governors of the central bank who are female. Malaysia has got a lot to be proud of. But at the end of the day, if you look at the numbers for what they are, then they remain small. Why is there the pipeline leak? Well, like I said, I think that in some cases, it's the politics, but in a lot of other cases as well. I think that women are focused on more than just a career. Career is very important, but so is family. And when I say family, I don't just mean, taking care of young children. I also think that there's an element of taking care of your older family, such as aged parents. It normally falls on the woman. And if you've got very strict sort of 9 to 5, or indeed what we call 7-11 type working hours, then it's just incompatible. So you make certain choices. Now, I'm not going to say much more about that because I probably took the path less trodden. After 11 years in practice, I gave up and I started my own law firm. So basically, my only enemy was myself. So I think I'll shut up there. Thank you.
So to all the young lawyers listening, that's one way of doing it. Just step out and, hit the road and see where it takes you. If we could bring you in on, the problem of pipeline leaks in international law firms as well. Sui Im has already covered, quite comprehensively the kind of issues. There is politics, there is, balancing so many responsibilities. Do you think there's anything more to that? Anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, it's something, and it's an issue that I've struggled with for a while as a partner, losing talented, very, very talented women over the course of the years. I like to say that I made, in my own personal struggle against this, a little bit of a difference, because I've, in my career, sponsored 4 partners, 3 of which were women, 1 was a man, and I'm going through right now an ex-sponsorship, which is also a woman. So I've thought about this a lot, and I've had heated debates with various people about it, and one of them was my husband, because the first female partner that I was sponsoring through was a mainland Chinese lawyer, and she had a lot of responsibilities at home. You know, it was a very traditional family, and they frowned whenever her husband picked up the baby and immediately came and helped him, but fully expected her to be juggling a full-time, very, very stressful career and everything at home. And so I thought at the time that the only way I could get people like her through this difficult period was to be as flexible as possible in terms of giving her as much flexibility. You know, back then it wasn't as common to have agile working. We all work from home today, so it's a no-brainer. But back then it was quite tricky. Other partners weren't necessarily bought into it. You know, part-time was also quite tricky. And I had this debate with my husband, because he very much felt like, you know, her home needs to support her more with this career. And if they weren't doing it, then that was their loss, you know, rather than me having to sort of feel like I had to support her in her career and also support her in her home life. But I'm so very glad that I did it, because, you know, that was, I felt, the only way I could get her to the point that she is now, which is, you know, a high-flying partner. And I feel, you know, there is a responsibility on the employer to do more for the employee. We do, it's, as Sui says, it's not a 9-to-5 job, it's a 7 to 11 job. We do suck out a lot out of our people. And if there's anything more that we can give them back, even on help with their home life, that's what we need to do, because we ask a lot. And so one of the things, and I'm going to sort of champion my firm a little bit on this sort of free publicity platform, one of the things we did, which I'm very, very proud of, is about 1.5 years ago, we now have a shared parental leave policy. So it's no longer a maternity leave policy with like the dad getting a token 1 week or 3 weeks. You know, it's a sort of, that the period, which, and I know the stats for Hong Kong, I can't remember, it's 18 weeks or 24 weeks that can be taken either by the man or the woman. And now that more men have taken, you know, significant chunks, several months to take care of their baby, there's more momentum and more pressure in a way from other male colleagues to their other male colleagues to make sure you do this. And I think it's really helped to shift the dial on the sort of responsibilities at work and at home. It's no longer seen as the home responsibilities, and the responsibility of childcare and taking care of a newborn is on the mother and not on the father. At the organization, even after just 1 year, it's very much felt that it's both parents' responsibility. And when a father has a newborn, there's a tremendous amount of professional pressure on him to do this as well, because that's really important to be a role model for everyone else, and to help, you know, shift the balance and level the playing field.
Thanks for that. I think Herbert Smith leads the way in some of these innovations. You know, this is, of course, thank you for mentioning the parental leave issue, but also on, you know, promoting women arbitrators. They've, you know, been doing a great job in terms of making sure they're more visible, and generally on issues of diversity. I've always seen my LinkedIn page light up with something new that Herbert Smith is experimenting with. So we'll get to that as well in a short while. I just want to get Camilla in on the institutional perspective. Camilla, we've heard from different quarters of this panel that some of these issues are also culturally sensitive issues, which particularly apply to Asian jurisdictions. And I can certainly vouch for a certain cultural inhibition and a certain societal responsibility within the patriarchal structure in the Indian bar. From an institutional perspective, you've worked with the SIC and then the CIR as well. How does and institutions see it? What are the contours of the Asian gender diversity issue, if you will? And how does the institution then overcome it? How does one make sure that not the same people are being appointed again and again, that more and more people get their first appointments, above and beyond the issues that we've discussed?
Yeah. So from SEAC's perspective, I think SEAC was quite conscious that particularly the more established arbitrators are within this jurisdiction, and it's obviously international, but the majority of the arbitrators on the SEAC panel are Singaporean. Are men. And so they really wanted to address it. And I would go as far as to say that they have positively discriminated in order to address it, although that is not the view of SEAC, but I think that they have done so well to try and address it. Me being one of them, I think I may have got an opportunity that I might not have otherwise got. There you are, underselling myself. But I think SEAC's really got away. The second thing I want to say in relation to the jurisdiction is that because there is, in this region, it is much more easy to get full-time childcare than it is maybe in Europe. And I think that employers know that here. And there's also within the Singaporean culture very much a lot of families live together. So a lot of children can be looked after by the grandparents. There's a lot of children being looked after by the grandparents. So that the women don't have to worry quite so much about their children. So I do think that employers sort of almost take that for granted, I feel sometimes. And so definitely in Singapore, compared to the other jurisdiction, which I know very well in the UK, I don't think the government gives so much to women as they do in the UK. I've actually just been sent a very interesting link to the UK government about unpaid parental leave that employers have to give in the UK. And it's up to 4 weeks per child, which I find incredible. But I need to look further into that. But, and the other thing that I've experienced as a foreigner in Singapore, and there are a lot of foreigners practicing in Singapore, is that I haven't been even offered the bad deal that even women, as Singaporean ladies, have been offered. And I feel a little bit as a foreigner that I've been discriminated. So I took maternity leave while I was at SEAC, and I wasn't offered the same maternity leave amount that one of the local Singaporean ladies was offered as a result of. So actually, I think that needs to be addressed. I don't think that's fair. If Asian jurisdictions are going to open themselves up to foreigners, I think they need to give us the opportunities that they're giving females as well. But I would, I really think that SEAC is doing really good things to try and help women. An idea that I've come up as membership for CIARB, and I'd like to try and put this in place next year, is to try and get a pledge from institutions about generally helping women and underrepresented groups. So I think if we start naming and shaming institutions, then they've really got to put some real processes in place. And what better institution to start having a go than CIARB? So, I see Sri nodding her head, but, I think we can start naming and shaming. I think we should publicly be asking them, what policies do you have in place to try and give women more opportunities and all underrepresented groups more opportunities? I also wanted to mention another initiative that we've got going at CIARB for, with the equal representation for women. So we are giving them opportunities to try and become fellows at a much reduced price, and to do our training at a reduced price. And so we're hoping that that will help give women more opportunities.
Okay, that's lovely news to hear. I hope some of the younger women attendees are listening to that with care. I'll also just bring in Vanina at this point, because Vanina, with your experience at the ICC court for about 8 years, how do you look at this issue? What do you think about the difficulties that women confront in getting the first appointment, you know, in being visible enough within the community? And do you see that as a problem that has particular contours in Asian jurisdictions or not?
I think the ICC has been making tremendous progress over the years since I first joined the court. I was one of the few females and younger, and I think the ICC is not only putting an effort in gender diversity, but also regional diversity and generational diversity in terms of appointing younger arbitrators, new faces. It started off with the ICC having gender parity in the composition of vice presidents, being equal male and female. And now the ICC court is half male, 50% male and women. And we see a lot of younger women. I am no longer the token representative of young and regional diversity anymore. There are a lot of young women in the court from Africa, from everywhere in the world. So this is a positive step. And I also noticed that a lot of efforts are being made. And the statistics show that there's been a huge jump from 2015 to 2019 in terms of appointments of women and first-time appointees. So from that front, I think a lot of efforts are being made with the ICC. And we want to see more of that with other institutions.
Vanina, if I could just, sorry.
The thing is transparency. If institutions are pushing their statistics, that's the only way of being held accountable to the public, is by showing how many numbers of women and how many numbers of men are being appointed.
Okay. Vanina, on this question of appointment, you know, institutions have done a lot in terms of pushing the envelope. If we look at the statistics, I think last year it was about 34% women appointees, which is considerably better than, you know, co-arbitrator appointees, which were about 21%, if I'm not mistaken, and particularly party appointments, which were only at about 13 or 14%. So the institutions are doing their bit. They are trying to be active. What is the value add that the institutions see, other than the fact that, of course, there is this push towards gender diversity, and it is as it should be? What do you think, if you could just give us perspective on why is it important that there should be diversity in an arbitral tribunal, for instance? What does it bring to the table? And Camilla, if we could also have your views on that.
Well, I always say, as Benjamin Franklin said, if everyone is thinking the same, then no one is thinking. And there are a lot of studies that say that diversity brings better quality award, brings better decision-making skills. There's a study by McKinsey of 100 of the Fortune 500 companies that show that companies with women on the board perform better in all criterions, whereas companies without females on the board perform much poorer. So the fact of having diversity in the tribunal bring more perspectives in terms of better quality decisions. And it's reflective of the world, frankly. We live in a world where 50% are women, yet all the decision makers are men. So it's not reflective of the arbitration community, of the world. So the importance is that it makes for better decision making. But on your point about the institutions playing an important role, I don't think that the onus should be on the institutions alone. The onus should be on all of us. But the institutions play an important role in getting first appointments, because parties are reluctant to appoint first-time arbitrators without experience. So that's why institutions are very important in terms of helping younger arbitrators and new arbitrators to get experience. But I know, at least from my experience, when I was working in Hong Kong, the same office with May, was that there was always an effort out there to put names of female arbitrators. So this is what, from the law firm side, they can do to the parties. But if you put a name of somebody without experience, you would have much more difficulty to appoint a female as co-arbitrator.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I think Vanina's already talked about what a more diverse panel can do, and there's loads of studies out there showing about, you know, a better result, a more rounded result, a more commercial result in many cases. But what I wanted to say is, because of that statistic, I don't think women should be apologetic about who they are. We shouldn't try and be like men, and we shouldn't try and live in a man's world. You know, we can come across as a little bit ditzy or about underconfident, and we shouldn't apologize about that. I think that actually, because I think because we are having these conversations, and men are more conscious that they'll get spoken down to if they're not careful, then I think they're embracing a little bit having women on these panels, to be honest. I think the men are enjoying having the diversity themselves as well. So I think that we, you know, I think that we should embrace that and not be afraid to be ourselves, because we're adding something really, really valuable.
Okay, Swayam, thank you for that, Camilla. Swayam, if I could just, you know, bring you into this discussion. So here we have, you know, the sort of substantive advantage of having women arbitrators. It makes for a more diverse panel. It makes for a more efficient system, more representative system. And like Camilla said, you know, it is as it should be. So, but on this question of parties and their reluctance to appoint female arbitrators, I don't know if you've experienced this in Malaysia, but certainly in India, sometimes I feel with clients that on the broader issue of diversity, they are sort of hesitant to resort to tested players in international arbitration, because they feel that the person on the other end of the phone or on the other end of the table may not be able to understand their different background or culture or ethnicity. So certainly there's, for a party, there is some merit in having a diverse panel, but somehow when we come down to the statistics of women appointees, we see that the parties are diffident, although gender diversity, if you look at it, is part of the broader discussion on diversity. How do you see that? If we could have your views on that, and then maybe bring Nopramat in as well.
The way I see it, Manini and everybody else, is the fact that, and all of us, myself included, are guilty of this. You like to go for the tried and tested. You are very reluctant to, especially on larger cases, to tell the clients, let's give this person a try. I've heard good things about this person, I've met this person, I've spoken to this person, blah, blah, blah. So you actually end up going for the same few people, and in fact, your pool of people you choose from are getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. So it's actually quite the opposite of what we should be doing. So really, we need to actually widen that pool, and that pool must be widened in all aspects, and the diversity must be in all aspects. Just that today we're talking about gender diversity. So how do you do that? As I agree, I mean, it's got to be the institutions, and you get to a point whereby maybe parties get to know you a little bit better, and will be willing to appoint you. I mean, from my perspective, I can tell you that age has actually helped me. And once I got to the stage of being a bit of an auntie sui, I found that I was pretty much accepted more easily than when I was perhaps perceived as somebody who was out there as a rival. So I've enjoyed that, being the auntie sui kind of thing. And I think that that is one of the issues that comes, that does play into it. But the other issue, of course, is the fact of visibility, and we've talked about that. I mean, Herbert Smith is absolutely amazing that they are actually introducing new arbitrators to all their offices by way of a formal sort of program that they have. But what does everybody else have? You get all these mentions or posts or likes on LinkedIn. Yeah, great, so what? It doesn't tell you who you are, how capable you are. So I do believe that actually there must be much more visibility as to what that person's capability is. I was really happy having been appointed by 2 male arbitrators as chair. And that's because they actually know me personally and were able to vouch for my ability and capability. But if they didn't know me personally from my days as counsel as an arbitrator, I don't think that opportunity would have arisen. So how are we going to get the visibility? I think people like arbitral women, people like CIR and all that can do something akin to what HSF is doing, which is to give, what's the word to use, to showcase perhaps more arbitrators, be they women, be they younger arbitrators, be they, racial diversity, cultural diversity, all of those kind of things. Now, somewhere like Malaysia, it's starting to happen. The Arbitration Center here, the Asian International Arbitration Center, has signed up to the pledge. They are actually making a big effort to appoint more women and appoint younger arbitrators. It's a process that's ongoing, but we're not there yet. So we all have to do certain things and not just, and I mean do it, not just talk about it. So that's my take.
Thank you for that, Swiem. Nopramat, would you like to add something?
Yeah, very short. Okay. So I think to bring in the more diversity in the arbitration is necessary. Let's imagine if you have like 3 male arbitrators on the panel. You have the male, the board counsel are male, and there is only one lady witness. That's something make the proceeding something quite strange and uncomfortable for the witness, right? And also in terms of the solutions, the solution that can be solve the case. I think that if there are more female arbitrators, you may get the other side of the solution that actually not male style. So, but I didn't say that male or female style is better, but I think that for the diversity, for the problem solving, that is something that we should bring more female arbitrator. But how? I agree totally with Kun Vanina that all of us as the female practitioners, we have to encourage the young generation that if they want to come to the arbitration world, they have to improve themselves and they have to make the step, to take the action, to make the world know that you exist, you can do the case, you can handle the case. That I think that's important thing. Because before you ask the institutes to help you to put your name on the panelist, you have to prove your ability, whether or not you're competent to handle these kind of cases. I think that is something that we have to encourage among our community and encourage our young practitioners. That is something. Before we think that, okay, let have the institute help us, or let's have the our male counterparts to sympathy or to help us. So I think that is something that we have to think seriously. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So I think what Nopramat has said also sort of answers partly one of the questions in the Q&A box about are we, showing sympathy to the weak by making gender such an issue in terms of presence on the arbitral tribunal? Well, of course, it seems that the bottom line base is certainly quality and merit, and we're talking above that base. So that is the kind of tenor of the discussion. But I will get the panelists to also tell us about, the thin line between doing the right thing in terms of gender diversity and not sacrificing merit on the other side in a minute. But before I do that, May, if you could just come in. I think Nopramat and Sui have made some very relevant points in terms of how one can tackle, the dropping out of women over the course of the profession, as well as making them more visible as potential appointees to institutions. So now we know that there is a problem. It is societal. It is professional as well. So in terms of the role that the woman has to play as the responsible family caregiver, and at the same time match her male counterparts in a law firm and meet the highest expectations there. And then it is also personal, because at some point women start internalizing the kind of prejudices that they see. And Camilla earlier referred to the issue of confidence, which seems to be a more personal manifestation of the unconscious bias problem. So if we see that problem and we know that there is a need for a solution, given the merit that diversity brings to awards and to opening up the arbitration community in general, where does a law firm stand in terms of its responsibility? Not only in terms of the pipeline leak, because you've referred to that already, but in terms of making arbitrators more visible, in terms of making women more confident in themselves, giving them the kind of opportunities that they need. Where does a law firm stand on that?
Yeah, it's a tricky question and a tough nut to crack. I do have male partners jokingly come to me and say, when are we going to have a white old men interest group, or some special programs targeted towards white men? Because we at the firm have a program for almost every D&I aspect. We take LGBT plus very seriously, we take gender very seriously. We've recently launched our 10 actions for change in relation to ethnic minorities as a result of George Floyd and other points. We look at sort of every aspect, because not only is it the right thing to do by our people and by our communities where we operate, but as Vanina said, it also makes a lot of business sense. And where do you draw the line? I mean, that's a very, very good question. I think for me, you can't impose solutions on people. You have to bring them along in the journey. You have to use various scientific research, client feedback, appeal to your male colleagues as from the basis of what would be the right thing for their daughter, and what opportunities would they want their daughters to see. There's a different argument for everyone that will lead to the same outcome, and you've got to bring them along in the journey, and you've got to also realize that you can't change people just by making one good argument. Some people will need to hear the same thing 10 times from 10 different people and present it in a different way before the penny will drop. I guess for me, it's, you know, I keep pushing, but not too hard when people don't want to hear it and they're adamant against everything that's going to come out of your mouth on this subject. I bide my time. Sometimes it's the right time to raise things, sometimes not. And, you know, if you look at, and I celebrate the successes, and occasionally there are small successes and occasionally there are big successes, and it's all good. You're not going to change the world overnight. You've got to be really patient. And, you know, I feel very, very proud. I feel all of us have come a long, long way. I feel I've come a long way in my personal journey as to what's the right thing to do. And I think I've helped quite a lot of people through the years sort of buy into the philosophy as well.
Okay, and in terms of you know, drawing this line, I mean, it's great that we have the ERA pledge, May, and it's sort of a soft commitment, which is a great start. It puts the right amount of pressure, and it's a voluntary thing. But as a community, what are we looking at? What is the end goal? You know, are we looking at a different, more strong commitment or outcome? And if we do that, coming back to one of the you know, questions from the audience, are we sacrificing merit and showing sympathy for the weak, so to speak? Where do you stand on that?
I think it will be no surprise to people that I don't think women are very, very tough. When I'm negotiating salary or a contract or interpretation point with my associates, you know, the women really, some of them just are much, much tougher and don't give up on a point. So yeah, I don't think we're by any means more likely to cave or more likely to show sympathy at all. And in fact, I raised that point with the panelists earlier on chat, that it's a badge of honor to be sued, because I was, and Vanina might remember this, I was sued for allegedly bullying the counterparty into signing a settlement agreement. Fortunately, the case was dropped against me. It was all a tactic in the usual way, but I see that as a badge of honor. Where is the end point? You know, as a firm, we read the science and the research, and we thought back in the day that the end point was 30%, on the basis that once you get to 30, you have a significant cohort of role models and a different way of doing things, and naturally things will progress to a kind of 50-50 level. But since then, we've learned that actually, even if you get to 30%, you keep having to do the right things to bring in diversity at all levels. So, you know, there are certain leadership groups in the firm now where there are more women than men. And, you know, we're trying to bring in the men because we want a diversity of views. We have some Asian offices where there are very, very few international lawyers, and we need to bring those in. And when we have other Asian offices where it's a very expat-led office, and so we want to promote and encourage local talents because there's a huge role for them to play in any business. So it's, there isn't an equation where if you hit that, you're like, jackpot, this is the happy ending. It's more like baking a cake, you know, each cake is different and you have to watch it very carefully and balance the ingredients and balance, you know, everything. And yeah, there's never a kind of end point as such. You have to have your finger on the pulse and just sort of feel, what does this organization need more of, and how do we get there? And I feel the same with tribunals.
Sween, would you like to add to that? We've also got a question in this vein which says, you know, I'm curious to know what is your thought about the situation where women were selected to a committee or a board just to meet the diversity requirement. So this is essentially the fear on the other side of the fence, which is that sometimes women are just going to become, you know, the poster item on a panel, or, you know, the thing that is supposed to look appropriate because there is so much pressure from the arbitration community, and not really be doing enough, or not really be expected to do enough because there is some lack somewhere in merit. Where do you stand on that?
If you can't do it, if you're not good enough, you're not capable, you shouldn't be in this game, period. And therefore, I'm not a supporter of positive discrimination in the true sense of the word. I start off with saying that everybody is capable and that they're equally capable before you even get into this issue of who do you choose. You can't have people who are not as good being chosen over good people just because they're women or they're from a particular cultural background or whatever. I think that, you know, this is something that we can't, because that is actually making the whole movement weaker. Now, I'm sure that there are people who disagree with me on that, because there's certain things that you have to do. So, I mean, from my perspective, the way I see it is that if you've got to be good, you've got to be capable, so that you're on that equal playing field. Once you're on the equal playing field and everybody is there, then it becomes, okay, I can choose 1 through to 10. It really doesn't matter because they're all equally capable. Then I'll make an attempt to choose a woman, or whatever diversity that we're talking about at that point in time. So I think that's important, and that's something that everybody should be recognizing before they sort of say that, well, you're favoring the weaker one, because it shouldn't be the weaker one. It should be somebody equally capable. So that's, for me, I think that's really important. I see Camilla wanting to come in on that.
Desperate to say something. We've been very good at not interrupting each other on this panel, but I'm a real one for interrupting, so I'm sorry. I'd love it if we were all coming from this on an equal playing field, but I just don't think we are. And I just don't think we're accepted as coming from an equal playing field. I think my experience, and certainly that of my boss, who I've had many conversations with about this, and women are looked to prove themselves before they're even put up for the appointments. Whereas I think men are assumed to, many men are just assumed to have the knowledge, whereas they look for women and they expect that little bit more. I think we may have experienced it if you walk into a boardroom of men, and let's say there's 8 men and 1 woman, they'll almost look to you more. It's almost like they will direct more questions to you, because they're like, well, this is interesting. This is that we've got someone in here, and let's hear what she's got to say. And it's my experience that they look to you more to say something. Maybe a pessimistic way of looking at that is because they want you to show why it is that you're in there. I think with perfectly unconsciously, actually. I think it's unconsciously they're doing it. And secondly, because you're just something a bit different. They want to hear what you've got to say. So I would love it if I thought we were all entering it on a level playing field, but I think women are being required to prove that little bit more before we even start.
Sorry, Camilla, just to...
Do you agree with that, Suying? Do you?
Yeah, I do, but I just want to clarify the fact that, at the end of the day, what we're saying is that don't expect to be chosen or promoted if you're not good.
Absolutely.
Right, so that's my baseline. And I think I understand your point that actually the women who are there, who are available for selection, are actually better than good, because just in order to make that list, they have to be that much better. So if that's the case, guys and girls, what's this business about supporting or promoting the weaker? It's not. You're actually promoting the stronger.
True.
So
I'll get off my...
the way I see it, it's that both these perspectives kind of align on the same base point, which is that of course, merit is important, but there is clearly a problem in terms of how we perceive a women candidate as opposed to a male candidate. And that is the problem of unconscious bias, which is at the root of the gender diversity debate. So
can I just add in that also how women perceive themselves?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that's an important aspect.
The internalization of that bias as well. You're quite right about that. So there are various contours to this problem, and the ultimate solution as to where we would stop between a soft commitment and positive discrimination is really governed by the host of factors that we're talking about. So it may not be easy at this point to draw a line in the sand. Like May said, it's a daily sort of evaluation of what an organization needs and how it should align itself. Coming back to a little bit of a more personal anecdotal reference, sometimes in my time in the profession, I've felt that successful women in the workspace may not support one another. I wonder whether that comes out of a feeling of, there's a limited amount of space for us and we all have to fit into that little island of space. Do you agree with that? Have you felt that at any point? And why do you think that is? What can women do to support each other as sponsors, as mentors? We'll start with you, Swayam, and then get Vanina and Nopra Martin.
I think it's important that women are shown that support. And what I was going to talk about a little bit is an informal support group that we have started. It started in London with Lian Mulcahy QC. And talking to her, we then started it in Malaysia. And it's actually starting to become a little bit even more, grow more organically, which is that I think women need support in ways that are different from men. Women actually are much more self-deprecating. And as forceful as any one of us may be speaking in this webinar, all of us panelists, I think that we generally are more self-deprecating than men, and just the nature of things. So therefore, there's this very informal support group whereby you are encouraging women to believe in themselves, to try to assist them with opportunities that may come up, to push them in the right direction. And that is kind of a cohort of enablers, if you want to call it that. And we are trying to do this by way of just meeting over drinks, meeting over lunch, whatever it may be, and just chatting and having the empathy that perhaps a lot of people are feeling in this webinar. So that has to grow organically. It has to grow by way of a form of multi-level marketing. So the first gathering we had about 30 people. The next gathering maybe only have 5, but your 5 will grow to 15 and so on and so forth. So I believe that this is something that's very important simply because we're just dealing with a different type of personality in a world that is dominated by personality that doesn't quite fit this. So that's why the support.
Vanina, if we could have your word on it now. Swayam, I understand you're suggesting that soft connections are very important, just reaching out to other women and informally, sharing experiences. I know that has personally helped me a lot in my career. Vanina, would you have something to add? And then Nopra Martin.
Yes, I mean, I take mentorship very, very important. And I think that if you don't find a woman who's supporting you, you need to take the initiative and reach out. I've had people reaching out to me through LinkedIn or just message me asking me for coffee from everywhere. And so I've been talking to so many women around the world. Even when I was in Hong Kong, kind of started an informal happy hour group among women who were in arbitration. And I think that's how I decided to run to be on the board of Arbitral Women. And this is a little advertisement, but if anyone is interested to join Arbitral Women, that is one great platform to find like-minded people. We have a mentorship program, and as a member, you can contact me about organizing an event in your jurisdiction. And events are great platforms where you can meet other women who will support you to grow your network, find other supportive women. And it's really about finding women who are supporting each other. And right now with the pandemic, I'm having Zoom calls and Zoom happy hours and Zoom coffee with women from around the world. And it's a great opportunity, especially if you're in a jurisdiction where you're not finding other women in the profession.
Now, Pramod, if you could come in.
Yes, for actually, I may be lucky because for the mentors that or supervisors, I have most of the male supervisor in the litigation practice, but they always treat me very nice, and that is also become something that when you've been trained very good and you really appreciate what the mentor taught you or train you, then they become the good role model for you. And once I become the senior lawyers, I also take that step that okay, I also treat the both female and male associate equally, even like assign the work or ask them to accompany me to the court arbitration proceeding. So that is something I feel that it's quite not different for me, but yet not only a female, a successful female that can be the supporter for you, but also I experienced that male, the open-minded male supervisor also the good supportive to the good supporter for you. So that is in my experience. Thank you.
That's a very optimistic note. Thank you for that. So actually, that I'd like to have everybody's views on that. You know, women who have supported you in your careers, and if not women, because I know some of you were have walked this journey alone. Being the trailblazers that you are in your respective practices. So if not women, then men who have really supported your career and mentored and, you know, sponsored you into becoming the lawyers that you are today. If I could have just everybody pitch in on that, that would be wonderful. Swayam, we can start with you, and
Okay.
then, Camilla, Vanina, and May in that order. Yeah.
So I've had a variety of inspirations, I think, rather than sponsors. I don't consider I've ever had a sponsor. I had a lady boss whom I admired tremendously until today. And she was somebody who was tough but good, fair but exacting. And basically what she did was that she showed me confidence and allowed me to go out there and make my mistakes. Now that's saying something, because I mean, at that time I was an in-house counsel at a very large public listed company. So to be allowed to do that, I think was pretty amazing, and mistakes I did. And I'll come back in the evening after a heavy day of negotiations and explain to her what I've done. She says, I think we'll have to change that. I said, oops, but you know, I really agree at that point. Says, oh well, tomorrow we'll just go back there and tell them that that was wrong. So I think that that was absolutely amazing, you know. But then there are also people in my life, and they've been male, who have not done anything very specific, but who have had an influence. And one of them is actually the late Vinay Pradhan, who was the late director of the IAC. Way back in 1987, 1988, there were very, very few females in construction. Vinay was that person, and he was, in my view, not gender biased one way or the other. And his associate, female, was one of kind of like my best buddy then. But unfortunately, she passed away, I think, age 38. So she never got to her full potential. And I sort of feel that that's something that I kind of carry a torch for her in that sense. And then there's somebody else actually who I consider to be a mentor. He's male as well. His name is John Bishop. He's an arbitrator with Arbitration Chambers. John didn't actually have to do anything specific, but he was also always there supporting. The fact that he thought highly enough of me was in itself a form of support. Now, you may call that me needing endorsement from a male mentor, perhaps, but you know, at that point in time in construction, during my time, there weren't that many females around. So that's kind of my mixed journey. And I think that, yeah, that's just my anti-sui moment.
Sorry, before we move on to the next speakers, Sweem, if I could also just ask you for advice to the younger attendees who are listening, and if everybody in their turn could also just give out some advice so that it's a sort of a chain of the ones who helped you and the ones you're advising on your way along. So Sweem, if you could also tell us about that.
I say this at every talk that I do, which is be good at what you do and believe in what you do and what you can do. And then you believe and go out there and live that belief. And I know that along the way, there are many challenges and you need a lot of friends along the way. But you know what? There are a lot of friends out there, and you can start off with everybody that you see on the screen. So believe in yourself, and you know what? Enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, nothing's worth it.
On that optimistic note, Camilla, would you like to come in?
Thank you, Sriya. Thank you, Manini. I would say there isn't really one particular person. I would say, and I think everyone on the panel would agree, that where they are today is a culmination of various people's advice along the way. And I can probably think of about 5 or 6 key figures in my career who offered key pieces of advice, which I took to heart and which I acted upon. So I wouldn't necessarily say there's one, but just to pick on a few of those. At the very start of my career as a disputes trainee, I sat with a lady then. She was maybe 3 years a partner and had young children. And she dispelled the myth for me that successful women are hard and had to appear hard. So she dispelled that myth for me, and I would say that was one of the best things. I would say that the next thing was someone called Ben Duretta, so a male, who actually got me involved in CIR. But he said to me, the best next step in your career is to join CIR and get networking and get out there. So that is also a plug for everyone who wants to build a network, but it really is the best way that you can do it. So that was probably another piece of seriously good advice. And then I would also, I've got a new Director General at CIR who started in May this year. She's a lady called Catherine Dixon, and she has been a fantastic mentor to me. She has promoted me from a regional role to a global role, and she's believed in me, and that has given me belief in myself. So I think we can all support, you know, taking the time to support people is so meaningful. And, you know, when we're all gone, those people will remember our advice. The last thing was that you just wanted to get a little piece of advice. I've got 2 pieces of advice, and they're very similar to Sweem. But the best piece of business development that you can do is what's on your desk right now. As a junior practitioner, you really need to get your ins and your outs right. Because by the time you know all of that stuff, a lot of the time, you are coming across some of the, particularly if you specialize in one particular matter, you may be coming across the same issues. So make sure you really get the technical knowledge right at the beginning of your career, particularly in ADR and in arbitration. And then as your career progresses, you know, it's what we've all been saying today, be confident and believe in yourself.
Thank you for that, Camilla. Vanina, would you like to come in?
Yes, hi. I mean, I've met many informal mentors along the way, but I would have to say my greatest supporter is my grandfather, who was a law professor and an exit arbitrator and my inspiration. But he's been there with me along the way from the day that I got sworn into the bar until even last year when I was speaking at the THAC. At 87, he was still sitting in the front row, and he's never missed a speaking engagement, sitting at the front row if he's in the same country. So he's been my greatest supporter and cheerleader throughout my career, and has helped me to never give up. And I think that is basically the advice that I have, is to persevere and never give up. And of course, work hard, get the experience, but start profile raising and networking from the beginning of your career. Don't wait until you're close to partnership to start thinking about that. Start networking from the start by getting to know people in the field, making friends, reaching out to people for advice. Grow your network, because that network that you build will become invaluable throughout your career, because the international community, you will find, is very small, and afterwards everybody knows each other. And just believe in yourself, be confident, and no matter the challenges that you see, and whatever unconscious bias that comes at you, don't let it faze you. Just believe in who you are.
May, if I could hand over to you. Thank you for that, Vanina. That was such a touching reference to someone within the family. I think the family has a very important role to play for all of us. So that's very nice. And May, if we could have you in as well.
Sure. On the question of sponsors and mentors, I guess I've had both men and women, and I guess my experience is to advise people not to typecast your male and female sponsors and mentors, because they don't, like the rest of us, act according to gender stereotype. My female sponsor was an extremely hard-nosed and tough lady, and she was very tough on me as an associate. I still remember sort of sleepless nights sometimes after she'd said something a bit harsh to me as a junior. But at the same time, she really stepped up. You know, she was really, really pushed for me very, very hard during promotion to partnership. And for that, I'll be forever grateful. Whereas on the other side, you know, whenever I had personal issues, whenever I needed a cry out of all those people, if I would go to the male mentor, because he was a very soft-hearted and kind person, and you know, just the tears flowed more easily, and I knew I wouldn't be judged. So you do need to get whatever emotional, professional, technical support wherever you can from different people, regardless of whether they're male or female. But I guess one thing that was quite crucial, reflecting back, that I got from the women is that because two of these mentors were extremely powerful and high-ranking women within the firm, I guess I always never thought that there was any kind of gender ceiling. You know, one of them was an ex-CEO, and I just took for granted that women could just go up and up if they so choose to, and that was useful. And you know, I owe it to them for that. For my bit on the advice, I'm going to answer the question that's been posed by giving a bit of advice on this. I know, so the question that's posed by one of the attendees is that, and this is happening, this is a phenomenon that is happening around the world, you know, there's so many women in law school, as the statistic that Vanina gave says. And so what happens is that it feels really, really unfair, because when you have recruitment rounds, most companies, most firms want to recruit an average of men and women. And so if you have 70-80% female law graduates and only 20% male law graduates, you're very stressed out about whether or not you can get a role in a firm. And that, you know, I'm not underplaying it, is a very stressful situation, and it's tough to get in. But I guess my advice is just think about it on the flip side. If you are good at what you do and you do get in, then you're just going to cream the competition, because the others, probably the men in the 20% who got in because there was less competition, are clearly not going to be as good and as fierce as you. So eventually things will balance out and you will find it in your favor. But obviously the first hurdle is tougher.
Thank you for that. And Nopramat, anything you'd like to add in terms of advice? I know you mentioned your support along the way earlier, but in terms of advice to the audience, if there's something you'd like to add?
Yeah, I add only the advice for the young generation, because the mentor that I refer to, I still work with them, you know, and they always good to me. Yeah, that is my appreciation to them. And for the suggestion, I think that to be good is not just you set the goal, is what you have to do it now. You have to take the action seriously, because it takes time to be before you become the arbitrator or to become the partner. It's the long way, right? So if you think about it now, you have to take action after this seminar, you know. So I think that is important. And for myself, I taught myself that, okay, for every day I have to learn what is my mistakes and how I can improve from my work. So that's something that keep learning and keep improving yourself every day. That's something that I suggest the young generation to do. And last thing that for the to be the arbitrator or the counsel in the arbitration role, I think that you have to love the disputes. You have to love it. You have to love to fighting. You have to love to challenging. So I think that because you have to have fun with it, with the problem. That is something. Otherwise, you will be really get stuck with this kind of problem. For myself, I think it's like a game. That when you play with it, you have a fun with it. That's fine. So that is something I taught myself, and I just like to share this. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So girls, keep your gloves on, is what Nopramat is saying. So I think we've got some very valuable forward-looking input for almost every section of the arbitration community here. Parties, we encourage you to have faith, to make the efforts to identify women arbitrators if they are not immediately on the top of your mind. Firms, like May said, encourage the right kind of culture, put pressure on your employees to behave in a way that is conducive of diversity. Institutions like Camilla and Vanina and Suyem repeatedly said, they are, you know, responsible for pushing the envelope and making gender-friendly choices. And girls, there was a lot of advice for you. Work hard, keep at it, go for it, network, start now. So you have your task cut out for you. And men, if you want to be favorably remembered on seminars like these, then you know what you have to do: support. Thank you so much to this panel for being candid, for being optimistic about the future, and for being so invested in the future, for having thought about it and really pushing the community to make the right decisions. Thank you very much. Thank you to the organizers for a lovely webinar. Benyapa, I know that a lot of effort has gone into the technical aspects of this webinar, so thank you for that. THAC, Arbitral Women, and all our sponsors, thank you very much. Have a great evening, all of you, and I hope we meet again in another webinar like this soon. Bye. Bye, everyone.